Hello, my name is Jessica Heyer, and this project consists of my research on the politicization of the COVID 19 virus in the media. The COVID 19 virus has obviously been controlling the way in which we go about our daily life for over a year now. This virus was a brand new strand that our country had not seen before. However, the group of viruses that COVID 19 falls into have been around for a long time and is called the coronavirus, which is a single strand RNA virus. The virus gets its name from the spikes on the surface that resemble a crown-like structure as shown in this picture. The specific virus that is circulating through the world right now is caused by severe acute respiratory syndrome, coronavirus 2, or abbreviated as SARS-CoV-2. The COVID 19 virus varies in symptoms based on the specific patient. However, the virus tends to cause severe acute respiratory illness, including fever, cough, fatigue, shortness of breath, headache, chills, and body aches. The virus has also been known to cause loss of taste and loss of smell in many patients. However, some patients have also been asymptomatic throughout the whole course of their virus, especially those who are part of the younger generation. The COVID 19 virus is very contagious and is the reason those who test positive are required to quarantine. The viral particles are spread to other humans by respiratory droplets from an infected person. These respiratory droplets can be spread when the patient talks, breathes, coughs, and sneezes. This image from the CDC explains how mRNA COVID 19 vaccines work. Two large companies that many people have now heard of, called Moderna and Pfizer, both created an mRNA COVID 19 vaccine and was approved by the FDA and started administering the vaccines in the United States in December of 2020. mRNA vaccines are quite different from most of the vaccines that we are used to, such as the flu vaccine. Other vaccines often inject a live virus that your body recognizes and builds up antibodies for future infection. However, an mRNA vaccine does not inject a live virus and thus cannot give the patient COVID 19. Instead, COVID 19 mRNA vaccines work by injecting the body with a set of instructions to make the spike protein that I said earlier is on the surface of the COVID 19 virus. After the immune cells create the protein, the instructions are broken down by the body, and the cells will display the spike protein on its surface. The immune system will then recognize that this is a foreign protein and will create an immune response by making antibodies. This is the same response as when the body naturally fights the COVID 19 virus. So now our body has learned how to protect against future infection because it has already built these antibodies. The society that we live in is dominated by the media, especially during quarantine when in-person events are not possible. Therefore, it is apparent to most that COVID 19 has become polarized and politicized in the media and has caused there to be issues with getting accurate scientific information to the public. One study found that there was a large amount of misinformation on the severity of COVID 19 circulating in the media. Some articles stated that the public health officials were overestimating the severity of COVID 19 and were telling their viewers not to worry because it's just like the flu. This idea caused the spread of COVID 19 to rise and the response time to be slower because some believed that the virus did not matter as much as people were making it seem like. This study found that the adherence to this type of misinformation was more closely aligned with those who identified as a Republican, whereas Democrats were more likely to believe that COVID 19 was a very serious virus and should be handled in a proper way. Another study analyzed media coverage of COVID 19 and found that newspaper coverage was highly politicized and the media was extremely polarized. This study also found that politicians were more likely to be present in these articles than scientists were. The next study I researched studied a group of people in Southern California and found that those who identified as Democrat were more likely to believe that the COVID 19 virus had more risk associated with it than those who identified as Republican, which is similar to one of the previous studies I talked about before. This study went on to determine that Democrats were also more concerned about countrywide lockdowns, whereas Republicans were more likely to view the economic burden caused by lockdowns as worse for our country. This study also found that these candidates who were Democrat tended to watch CNN, whereas those who were Republican tended to watch Fox News more often. Many studies also researched the view on the COVID 19 vaccine. One study found that vaccine hesitancy is very prevalent due to over-politicization of the vaccine in the news. Many media articles brought up specific scientific misinformation, such as that there were not enough clinical testing and production was too fast for the COVID-19 vaccine to be safe. However, this caused unnecessary vaccine hesitancy because the vaccine was approved by the FDA because it passed all the safety and efficacy requirements. My research question for my project is: has the politicization of the COVID-19 virus broadcasted on large media outlets such as Fox News and CNN affected the public view of the COVID-19 virus and vaccine? After initial research, I hypothesized that large media outlets, including Fox News and CNN, focus more on politics surrounding the COVID-19 virus than the science of the virus and the vaccine. This has and will continue to cause the COVID-19 virus to become highly politicized and polarized through the public eye. I reviewed 20 articles in total, including 10 articles from Fox News and 10 articles from CNN. These articles were published in the month of December of 2020, and all the article titles included words relating to the COVID-19 vaccine. I chose to research the month of December because December was the month that the vaccine was ready for distribution in the United States, and I thought that this would be compelling to see how CNN and Fox News reacted to the vaccine distribution because it was a highly anticipated time. I then coded these articles and looked at the target audience, such as the general population, scientists, public health officials, and politicians. I looked into the controversy that was involved, such as controversy relating to politics, scientific misinformation, public health, economics, and vaccine regulation. Next, I looked at the most common source used, the tone of the article, whether that be positive, negative, or neutral, and the political affiliation or specific ideas brought up in the article on a scale of far to the right to far to the left. One of the news channels I researched was CNN. According to Wikipedia, CNN is a popular multinational news-based television channel that reports on major world and U.S. events. CNN originally claimed to be nonpartisan, but tends to have viewers and published articles that are slightly more left-leaning in political stance. The second news channel that I researched is called Fox News. According to Wikipedia, Fox News is an American multinational conservative cable news channel that reports on major world events. Fox News is often described as creating content that is biased toward the Republican Party and often speaks on the Democrat Party in a negative tone. Overall, Fox News claims that they are not biased in their news reporting and operates independently of their opinion and their viewers' opinions, but critics do not agree. In analysis, I found that the most common cited source of the articles I researched that reported on the COVID-19 vaccine were government officials, as shown in this graph. This graph shows the specific sources that I coded for and shows that when the data from all of the articles is combined, it is very clear that the most quoted source is government officials. This finding was true for the articles from Fox News and CNN, and did not have any variance in the number of articles having government officials as the most quoted source. As shown in this graph, out of the 10 articles that had government officials most commonly cited, 5 are from CNN and 5 are from Fox. This finding helps to verify the idea presented in another study that I spoke about earlier. This study found that politicians tend to be present in articles about COVID-19 more than scientists do. Overall, the data shows that these channels incorporated political opinions into their article more than scientific information regarding the COVID-19 virus and vaccine. This provides evidence for my hypothesis that states that Fox News and CNN have aided in sculpting COVID-19 into a political idea rather than a work of science. This has caused our country to incorporate a political divide in our society that skews the way in which people view the virus and has affected the way in which we could work together to conquer COVID-19 virus enough to go back to a sense of normalcy. From my data analysis, there was more political controversy spoke about than the controversy of scientific misinformation. As seen in this graph that I put together of my findings, in total 11 articles addressed or started political controversy, whereas 8 articles brought up scientific misinformation. Fox News had more articles that brought politics into the story than CNN did. However, CNN and Fox had the same number of articles that brought up scientific misinformation, and at this time the articles were debunking the scientific misinformation rather than spreading more. This finding does not support the finding found in another study that most news articles, especially from right-leaning news sources, were spreading scientific misinformation and speaking about the severity of the virus being overestimated, causing many people to believe that the virus was not severe enough for them to even have to change their everyday life. At this time, we were almost a year into the pandemic, which is most likely the reason for there not to being more scientific misinformation spread. At this point, the government was aware that a vaccine was desperately needed to stop cases from rising. Therefore, the focus of news articles in December shifted to political controversy surrounding the distribution of the vaccine. CNN was including their opinions of the way in which President Trump handled the vaccine distribution, such as in this clip included here.
The second thing to know is the Trump administration's plan to distribute vaccines is falling behind, far behind. We're grateful to the companies, the doctors, the scientists, the researchers, the clinical trial participants, and Operation Warp Speed for developing the vaccines quickly. But as I long feared and warned, the effort to distribute and administer the vaccine is not progressing as it should.
Fox News was then counteracting the blame that President Trump was receiving for the way in which the pandemic was handled by explaining how they have done a great job in vaccine production and how the Democrats could not have done better for the circumstances, as included in this video clip here.
With the vaccines and with the job we've done with COVID, I inherited an empty cupboard. Biden failed very badly with the H1N1, with the, as you know, he had a chance to do something, and they had a tremendous failure. H1N1, it was a disaster. And now he's taking over this. What he's taken over, Warp Speed, we had it, our military, what they've done in terms of delivery has been incredible.
Overall, most articles were placing blame on the leaders of the opposite political party by stating what they did not do correctly about distributing the vaccine, rather than coming together to distribute the vaccine efficiently to as many people as possible. From my data analysis, I found that more articles from both news platforms had a negative tone about the production of the COVID-19 vaccine rather than a positive tone or an informative tone. I constructed these two graphs shown here from my data. The one on the top right is all the articles combined to show that overall more articles I researched incorporated a negative tone within the article. The graph on the bottom left shows the data separated based on the specific news channel. Both news channels had a similar number of articles with a negative tone. However, Fox News had more positive tone news articles, whereas CNN had more neutral tone articles. When first choosing the month of December to look at articles, I assumed that there was going to be a higher amount of positive tone articles because it was a groundbreaking month in the COVID-19 vaccine realm. Instead, these two platforms tended to speak about how the other side of the political party was not doing enough to get the vaccine out to people. Again, this finding supports the idea that the COVID-19 vaccine information tended to be based on politics instead of the actual science on large media outlets, which further drove a wedge between the two political parties. When large media outlets write articles that have a negative tone, the frequent viewers will most likely adhere to that negative tone of the topic that the article is supposed to be about, thus causing there to be vaccine hesitancy because the politicians that many viewers support are bringing negativity about vaccine distribution in the article in order to prove that they know more about helping with the pandemic than the other side does. Overall, this strays away from looking to do the greater good for our country by working together to distribute the vaccine. My major findings from my research supported my hypothesis. I found that both CNN and Fox News focused on politics rather than the scientific and health aspects of the COVID-19 pandemic and vaccine. Overall, the COVID-19 virus turned into a political idea in the media and has diminished the important scientific information regarding the virus and vaccine that can save many people from the virus. These findings have very strong implications for the future, especially since social media is becoming more and more popular. When media becomes politicized and loses focus from the actual topic, it causes there to be a stronger political divide in our country, which further spreads misinformation. Some viewers have very strong connections with the news channels that they watch or the political party that they associate with, which can cause them to automatically believe everything that political party or channel says. These viewers usually do not research further in order to find the true scientific facts, meaning that the media may be their only exposure to scientific knowledge. In this case, it has caused there to be increased vaccine hesitancy due to mistrust in the higher system, since misinformation is spread throughout the media. The vaccine is the way in which we can help to slow the COVID-19 pandemic and help save those around us. Therefore, media should focus more on appealing to emotions present with the vaccine rather than politics.